Rain lashed against the cracked windows of a lonely farmhouse at the edge of the valley, the wind howling like a wounded animal and shaking the wooden walls until dust fell from the beams. Inside, Clara wrapped her shawl tighter and watched the small fire in her stove struggle to stay alive. The old house creaked inside, the only sound she'd known for months. Life had become a pattern of work and silence, days blurring into nights. But storms like this made the emptiness louder. Then came 3 sharp knocks. She froze. Out here, no one came after dark. Her heart thudded as she lifted the oil lamp, its flame trembling like her hand, and opened the door just enough to see. A man in a cowboy hat stood in the rain, soaked to the bone, and beside him, a little girl clutching a small bag, her eyes wide with fear. "Please," the man said softly. "We lost our way in the storm. Just one night of shelter." Clara hesitated. She barely had food for herself, but when she saw the child's pale face, she stepped aside. "Come in," she whispered. No one should face a storm alone. They stepped inside, dripping water onto the old floorboards. The girl shivered quietly while her father removed his coat. Clara fetched her only dry blanket and wrapped around the child's shoulders. "Thank you," the man murmured, his voice carrying calm authority. He introduced himself as Luke. His daughter was Emily. Clara offered the small piece of bread left from supper. Luke tried to refuse, but Emily looked at it as if it were gold. "It's all I have," Clara said gently, "and tonight it's enough for 3. As the fire crackled, warmth returned to the room. Luke's eyes wandered over the simple shelves, the broken clock, the faint smell of soap and lavender. "You live here alone?" he asked. "Since my parents passed," she replied. "It's not much, but it's home." He nodded. His voice and manners didn't match a poor traveler's. Still, Clara didn't ask. Some stories weren't ready to be told. Emily fell asleep by the fire, her small hand resting near the flames. Luke looked at his daughter, then at Clara. "You must think it's strange. 2 strangers knocking on your door in a storm." She smiled faintly. "Storms don't ask permission." Luke chuckled. "You sound like my wife. She used to say things like that." His tone broke slightly, and Clara realized the grief behind his eyes. She spoke softly. "I once dreamed of being a teacher, but dreams don't pay bills. So I stayed." Luke replied, "Dreams don't die, Clara. They just wait for the right time to wake up." For a moment, their eyes met across the firelight. Outside, thunder rolled again, but inside, something small and hopeful flickered. Morning brought silence and sunlight spilling through wet windows. Clara woke to find Luke outside repairing her broken fence. Sleeves rolled up, hands steady. She watched, surprised. When she thanked him, he said, "Couldn't sleep, thought I'd fix it." Over breakfast, he tried to pay her. She refused. "You needed help, not a bill," she said. Emily smiled and tied a small blue ribbon around Clara's wrist. "So you won't forget me," she said. Luke tipped his hat. "You've given us more than shelter. You gave us peace." They left at sunrise, the wagon disappearing down the muddy road, and the farmhouse felt even quieter. Days passed. The rain stopped, but the struggle returned. Her goats fell ill, the roof leaked, and the market paid her almost nothing. Each night she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, remembering the laughter that had briefly filled her home. "Maybe kindness doesn't come back," she whispered one evening, tears glistening in the lamplight. The wind outside offered only silence. Then, one afternoon, hoofbeats broke the stillness. A rider stopped at her gate. "Are you Miss Clara?" he asked. She nodded. The man handed her an envelope sealed with a golden emblem. "From Mr. Luke Harrison," he said before riding away. Clara's heart skipped. She'd heard that name, the richest ranch owner in Texas. Hands trembling, she opened it. The letter read, "To the woman who gave a stranger warmth when she had none to spare. Thank you, Luke Harrison." Beneath, it was a folded deed. A note said, "For one night of kindness, you gave my daughter a memory richer than gold. Let me return a fraction of what you gave us." Clara gasped, clutching the paper to her chest. "It was just one night," she whispered, tears falling. A week later, the sound of wheels returned. A black carriage stopped at her gate. Luke stepped down, smiling, with Emily running ahead. "Miss Clara," the girl shouted, hugging her tight. Clara laughed through tears. "You came back." Luke tipped his hat. "I couldn't just send a letter. I needed to see the woman who reminded me who I am." She smiled softly. "You were never lost," she said, "just waiting to be found." Luke chuckled. "Maybe so. But that night, I found more than shelter. I found grace." They sat on the porch as the afternoon sun painted everything gold. He explained he'd been traveling to inspect his ranch when the storm overturned his carriage. "If not for you," he said, "I don't know what would have happened." Clara looked at the blue ribbon still tied to her wrist. "It wasn't much," she said quietly. "It was everything," Luke replied. Then he asked, "You once said you wanted to be a teacher. There's a schoolhouse on my land. It needs someone kind and patient. Would you consider it?" She blinked, speechless. "A teacher? Every child deserves a heart like yours," he said simply. Tears filled her eyes. "Yes, I'd love that." Weeks later, laughter filled the open fields of the Harrison Ranch. Clara stood before a small wooden schoolhouse, teaching children beneath the wide sky. Emily sat in the front row, waving each time Clara looked her way. Luke watched from a distance, leaning on the fence, his hat low and his smile quiet. When class ended, Emily ran to Clara. "See, Daddy," she said proudly. "Miss Clara made everyone smarter." Luke laughed, warm and free. Clara looked around, the fields, the sky, the sound of joy, and felt her dream alive again. As the sun lowered, Luke walked beside her toward the barn. "Funny thing about storms," he said. "They destroy some things but bring others together." Clara smiled. "I guess even storms have a purpose." He handed her a small box. Inside, framed in glass, was the same blue ribbon. "So you won't forget us," he said. Clara's eyes shimmered. "I never could." The sun dipped behind the hills, and the ranch lights began to glow. The girl who once had nothing now had everything that mattered. A purpose, a home, and proof that kindness. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info.